Midwest Whitetail is brought to you by Realtree, HOYT Archery, Muddy Outdoors, Fuse Accessories, Frigid Forage, Trophy Rock, Scott Archery, Cabela's, Rocket Broadheads, Execute Scent Control, Bloodsport Arrows, Redneck Hunting Blinds, SCENTMASTER, Yeti Coolers, Quiet Cat, Non-Typical Wildlife Solutions, Deer Grow, Icon Cameras, and Nikon.
Thanks for joining me today on Midwest Whitetail. As I promised you last week, I'm going to be talking about how to dissect your hunting property using aerial photos and topo maps. So this is going to be a multi-week project because I'll start out by talking about the fundamentals involved, the principles, how to read the maps themselves, and then we'll start looking at the terrain features actually out on the farm. And I'll show you how the deer are influenced by these terrain features, how they relate to them. And that way when you see those things on a topo map or an aerial photo, you'll know exactly how that translates into the real world of hunting. And there's really no, there's no real secret to this, just a lot of experience. But what you're looking at is taking the features from the maps and photos and transferring them to the field, to the real world. So let's start diving into that. But before we do that, I want to tell you what's going to be on the rest of the episode too, so that you stick with the whole thing. The second half of the episode is going to be about co-ops, and we've got some really credible interview subjects from the state of Michigan. They're going to talk about the co-op experience and why this is something that you might want to consider. That'll be in the second half of the episode. I'm going to start out by looking at this aerial photo. And the aerial photos are really good for exposing the cover features, and they are not as good at exposing the terrain features. So let's see what the aerial photo's got for us here. I'm just going to break down one little part of it. It's the one that's right in front of me here. I can see a number of things right away that jump out at me. First one, is all these little draws, coming up out of there. You can see through the shadowing there's a lot of draws running up from this main, I guess it's a main valley. And we know we've got some significant terrain features to work with. If we've got draws, we've got ridges, valleys, we know we've got ditches to work with. So right away, we know that the terrain is going to have a huge influence on the deer here. So that we get really quick from an overview of the aerial photo. From there, I'm going to go one step deeper and I'm going to start looking at the terrain. I can see, or the cover, I'm sorry. I can see spots where there's narrow connecting corridors between two areas of larger cover. And I can pull you just a real quick example right here. You can see a couple of fingers cutting across an open bottom. And those are the kinds of spots where deer will cross open ground. They'll do that on ridges and they'll do that on bottoms. They like to relate to the cover when they're moving, and that gives them a sense of safety, I'm sure. I also notice, we've got, on this end, we've got an open field with a little narrow neck of cover between this area and this area. So any deer traveling, they're more likely to bottleneck and go through those types of spots. Anytime you've got a field that sticks way back in, like this one does, obviously a ridge top, it runs all the way to the back of this ridge. The deer tend, in most normal situations, to go around those rather than to cross them. But normally speaking, they're going to try to avoid open ground when they're traveling, and they're going to use the path of most security and least resistance. So it's, when you find those two features together, then you've got a spot where the deer are going to be traveling. So you combine that with security, and you've got a spot that you can almost 100% count on without even walking the ground, that there's going to be some nice deer sign there, especially during the rut when the bucks are on the move. So let me grab the topo map next, but I'll wrap this one up with a quick summary so that you really start to grasp this. The aerial photo gives you a kind of a big picture view of the terrain. It doesn't give you a lot of detail, and it gives you a really good view of the cover. So you need the aerial photo. If you don't have one, there's a number of companies that you can get them from, but you definitely need one for your property that you hunt. even if you've hunted it for years. By the time I'm done with this series, you'll see a fresh way of looking at this stuff. This one is from Huntterra. It's huntterra.com. I've used maps from mytopo.com. You can even find ways to download images off Google Earth, I believe, and you can even print some of those out. You're not going to get the more fancy custom print up like you can get from some of these other companies, but you can get at least an aerial photo. Okay, next I'm going to pull out the topo map here, and the topo map has contour lines on it, and these contour lines are what really confuse a lot of people, and you just need to spend a little bit of time studying on this and looking at these things, because it's not nearly as mysterious as what it might seem on the surface. You can figure this out. The contour lines represent land at a certain elevation. So let's say that the line connects everything at 900 feet above sea level. And you know, because it twists and turns and bends, that it's following the side of a ridge and going around the point and then going around the next valley. And you can just envision that, because you know that if you started walking and you stayed at the same elevation, you couldn't go up or down. You know you're going to follow along the sides of ridges, and you're going to go around draws and stuff like that. So that's all a contour line is. It would just be if someone told you you're going to go for a walk, but you can't go either up or down. All you can do is stay at a constant elevation. You would walk one of these contour lines. And the shape of the contour lines is what gives us a picture of what the terrain feature is. But again, if you spend some time practicing it, this isn't that difficult either. For example, I'm just going to pull up, you get a valley. It's characterized by a contour line going up, making a sharp bend, and coming back. So all the contour lines at various elevations are going to make that same shape. And the closer they are together means the steeper that it is. So anytime you've got contour lines that are a long ways apart, you know that it's a fairly level area. So that's kind of all you're really doing with these things, is you're looking for places where the contour lines make turns. If they make sharp turns, that's sort of like it should be a light bulb going off in your head saying there's something going on there. So we look for those right away, and I look for any kind of spot where the lines are next to each other, because the deer don't like to go up and down steep slopes if they can go along them or around them. By the same token, they don't like going across deep ditches, which are characterized by those sharply pointed side-by-side contour lines. That signifies a valley and a fairly narrow one. The tighter they are and the closer they are together on their sharp bend, the narrower that valley is. And again, the closer together they are, the steeper it is. So pretty quick, you're starting to dissect the whole property. We can dive into every single terrain feature on this topo map and this aerial photo, and we can spend 2 months literally sitting here talking about this stuff, because there's that much you can pull out of these. But really what I want to do today is give you this introduction to how this works, and encourage you to get out and purchase the aerial photo and the topo map for the area that you hunt. And I'm going to come back again next week, and I'm going to start pulling out specific terrain features, and we're going to go out on the farm and look at a couple of them. I'll show you what they look like on the topo map, on the aerial photo, and what they look like on the actual walkthrough. Okay, so that kind of takes us through the first half of today's episode. There's a lot here. Like I said, I'm excited about what all we can get into, and we'll start talking about some of the specific bucks too in the coming weeks, and how we've killed some of these deer using some of these terrain features to our advantage. You can take your whole hunting area without setting foot on it. And if you spend enough time studying the aerial photos and the topo maps of that area, you can come up with some big movement patterns and really almost anticipate exactly what the deer are doing on that property without actually walking the thing. So I encourage you to do that. It'll change the way that you deer hunt. We're looking for the cover features, the terrain features, and then we'll start diving into the entry and exit routes that we use for sneaking in and out of the areas too. It's all right here on these photos. So next, let's move on to our segment on the co-ops in Michigan. And we've got a couple of great guests on today's episode. We've got Tony Smith, and he's with the QDMA, and he is I believe he's the state co-op organizer for the state of Michigan for the QDMA. And then we've got Brent Rudolph, and he's a research analyst with the Michigan Department of Natural Resources. So I'm going to throw it to those guys, and they're going to talk about the co-op experience.
What we want to talk about today is the impacts that deer management cooperatives are having in the state of Michigan. What benefits does the department see of voluntary deer management cooperatives that are going on in the state?
Sure.
As far as data collection and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, there's a variety of effects. Obviously, in deer cooperatives, the individuals that participate are having a different kind of experience in many instances, and work that we've supported done through Michigan State University has shown higher satisfaction and different harvest outcomes that's leading to the kinds of things they want to see, different types of experiences in hunting and more bucks and older bucks and that type of thing. From the department's perspective, though, too, we're always looking for opportunities to connect with hunters on the ground in an efficient way. So whether it's coming to a meeting of a deer cooperative that we can show up and have a number of folks there to be able to communicate with, to sharing that information that they then spread out amongst themselves, not only folks that are at a meeting, but that they're interacting with in the rest of the year. And even now, engaging in some things like research projects where it becomes a ready-made network of, in the science world, citizen science is what's often called to as a pretty popular kind of trend, where doing deer surveys, either filling out questionnaires, actually going out and counting deer, collecting check station data that we do, typically waiting for people to come to us, we can come to them and get it together, and it's providing a really different way to connect with the hunting community to support some of those efforts.
Talk about the benefit that serves the department in the bio collection and what you gain from that information.
Sure. So actually just the other day we were working on doing the final error checking and wrapping up our collection of check station data. And I now have a file of data that goes from 1987 to present. It's used a pretty same framework of collecting that information. We're close to 1 million records in that. So wow. That's all hunters that have voluntarily brought their deer to traditionally a check station. So that's a place where we send staff. We've got equipment there, we've got hours posted, and we sit there and wait for people to come to us and bring that information in. Well, a number of years ago, Maple River was one of, if not the first area that started that with the Maple River Deer Cooperative. They said, we'll put the work into getting people to come here, just like another co-op meeting, get people together and chat about stuff, bring our antlers in, bring our deer jaws in. That's how we age deer for that collection. And you folks show up, we'll make sure we get the people and the deer here to get the information collected. So that really started a trend towards a different way of collecting some of that information. And we age animals, so we get an idea of the age distribution of bucks and antlerless deer. We get location, obviously, from where deer was taken, the season, so we can track how it relates to the specific different seasons that we have. And for bucks, we get antlered measurements, which a couple of simple measurements are a pretty good indication of deer condition. So we look at particularly yearling bucks with their first set of antlers, and you look at a large number of records over time or comparing one place to the next, and you get a good indication of whether deer are in better or poorer condition overall, and provides important monitoring effort.
Yeah, that's wonderful. It's a wonderful way for people to get involved in creates an educational aspect too for co-op members and participants. One of the wonderful things that I've experienced with helping some of these co-ops get started is the involvement that the department's taking in these co-op startups or supporting the co-ops as they go along. I've been very pleased with seeing the representation from the department biologists at these meetings. I mean, from the John Niewounders and yourself and some of the others, right on down the line. There's just been not only support, but enthusiasm.
Right.
And I think that it does two things. It gives the department an opportunity to interface with hunters in this situation, but it also gives hunters an opportunity to get some information from the department that maybe they can quell some rumors or put to bed some urban myths and that sort of thing. So it's a wonderful two-way street of that communication, which is really what cooperatives are all about, is sharing that information, communicating. So I would like to personally thank you and your colleagues and the support that you've shown for the cooperative efforts in here in Michigan, and really look forward to an ongoing relationship and seeing where we can really take this thing in the future.
It's really been, I mean, you touched on it, it's really been a good trend for sharing information of all types, whether it's just neighbors that, you know, you've got your own ideas about what you expect out of your hunting experiences, but people always haven't made a habit of talking about that. Right. And so many times, you know, the other myths can be expunged at these kind of events are, I know what I want, but, you know, the other guy over there, that's not what he thinks until you get together and talk about it. And then you add the department into the mix, and yeah, it's just been a real positive trend to see a lot more interaction going on.
That's it for this week's episode. I'm excited about this series. I'm excited about getting out on the farm and doing a little bit of scouting and showing you some of these things that we've exposed on the maps and photos, and start talking about deer again and the strategy of hunting them. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you right back here again next week for the next episode of Midwest Whitetail, and remember to always dream big.